So I'd like to start out really with every speech with a story to kind of set context around why it's important for brands to really embrace measurement and analytics. And the story starts out with my son, Jack. He's 3, he's active, like every 3-year-old little boy. I mean, he's really a nut. He just runs all over the place. It's just really hard to control him. So my husband and I got the great idea to enroll him in soccer tots through this national chain called House of Sports. They have a facility right by my house. So I was really excited to enroll him because I thought it would just be a great energy burner. And the House of Sports is really known for training their coaches and helping just, develop young toddlers, and they have classes for adults too, and just promote teamwork, and just a really great program. So I went into the facility, I filled out a form. They asked me pretty detailed questions, which I was surprised about, happily surprised, because I thought, oh, well, this is great information. They're probably going to send me relevant information based on what they know about Jack. He's active, he loves Toy Story, loves to run outside. I left the facility, they have all my information. I went online, I liked them on Facebook. A friend of mine, my neighbor, also likes them. She has her son enrolled. A few days later, received an email, hey, sign up for Soccer Tots, sign Jack up. So I clicked on, I signed him up, received an e-receipt almost right away, which is great, filed that away. I went online and I have his full sports schedule, which is awesome because I can download it right to my Google Calendar. I can track his progress, right? So if coaches kind of want to note anything, they can kind of go into the system and type in anything. And they could potentially input information that I filled out on the card. They didn't, but they could have. So I thought, all right, well, this is a pretty cool system. They have all my information. But then I come to this page, directed to me, my player stats. Number one, I'm not a player, right? I have nothing to do with any of that programs at House of Sports. Now my son does, but I just thought this was kind of a wasted page. And maybe I'm being nitpicky here, but I was like, well, that's kind of stupid. And number two is I'm not 39. And they have that information. They took my license, and I am not 39. And being in my mid-30s to late 30s, I'm definitely not pushing 40 yet. So I was kind of a little annoyed, and I just thought this was a big fail. And maybe to some people it's not a big deal, but to me, where I'm in the business of pulling information and understanding how businesses can use information, this to me is a fail. Huge fail on their part. They have a card, a detailed card of my son's interests and activities. They could have used that information to target messages, to communicate with me, and they could have gone and investigated my profile on Facebook a little bit more, maybe reached out to me to see what my interests are, because I love to run. I was a soccer player in high school. Why didn't they market that to me? So they had so much information about me, my son, my family, and they didn't use it. So this led me to conclude that data does not equal intelligence. They were not using data in a relevant way to send me relevant messages, and even just to kind of foster relationships. And now that I think about it, my son's birthday is coming up next week. They didn't even kind of send me a card to try to get the birthday party held there. So yeah, this is just a really good example of brands having a ton of information about their customers and not really using it in a meaningful way. So today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about consumer and brand trends, right? The struggle there at a very high level, how we view the world at Forrester. And then I'm going to go into why measurement and analytics is important to understand consumers. And then finally, what I like to do anytime I give a speech or a presentation is leave you with 3 things that you need to go back into your office either tomorrow or Monday and do in order for you to become a data-centric organization. So when we think about different trends in terms of consumer behavior, Forrester likes to call it the age of the customer, right? I'm sure you've heard this term around in our conferences and other Forrester speakers. We talk about we're living in the age of the customer. And what does this mean? It means that the customer is in control. They're in control of the relationship with you as a brand. Right? They have a ton of room, a ton of options to make decisions to help service their needs. And you, as the brand, really need to be prepared to service them in the age of the customer. And you need to be prepared in 4 ways. One is you need to transform the customer experience. Now, the customer experience, as we define it, is how consumers perceive the experience with the brand. Forrester recently wrote a report around a customer experience index, and we can link customer experience, a high customer experience linked to high stock price. So we can quantitatively link that. So it's important for you as a business to really transform the experience that your customers have with you as a brand. Second is embrace the mobile mind shift. I was just reading a report by my colleague, The State of Online Shopping. And through her research, she found that about mobile revenues have increased from 2012 on smartphones 116%, around 116%. For tablets, 83% over 2012. So the mobile mind shift is embracing those mobile moments. About 53% of consumers are frustrated with brands that they don't have available and relevant content to them instantaneously. So in order for you to compete in the age of the customer, you must embrace that mobile mind shift. 3 is become a digital disruptor. My colleague James McQuivey talks about digital disruption. And this is when brands can innovate with new products to disrupt the market at a low cost. And then finally, turn big data into insights. And we'll talk more about kind of the different measurement and analytics techniques to do this. Right? You need to be prepared to manage data and information, and more importantly, to draw out relevant insights around that. Macy's does a good job at this. They're able to mine their data, and they've produced thousands of algorithms to change prices on a daily basis. And it's about a runtime of 2 hours, down from 30. But they have the ability to take that information and not only change kind of marketing direction, but change pricing. So now we're in the age of the customer. You know you need to focus on these 4 things. But what does the age of the customer also produce? Massive footprint of data and information. Now, if you think about it, at the consumer level, that bottom ring right there, it's all behavioral information. My House of Sports example, they have information that I went to the website, that I went to on their Facebook page. They have all that information that they could easily turn around and use and communicate through the right channels. What they're not leveraging in a really intelligent way is that top information. They have some of that information through that little card that I filled out, potentially through analyzing what else I like on Facebook. But this is the layer that, as a marketer, you need to think about. What matters to me? And how can you identify not only what matters to me, but how can you develop relevant content that really drives that relevant interaction? Because again, once I make that communication, it's all about interactions. And it's all about enabling those interactions in close to real time and with relevancy. So I like to look at it kind of through a different lens. This is your customer life, right? They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they can go into a store, maybe they receive some direct mail pieces. They are bombarded with brand messages. right? They have so many choices out there, and they have different influencers, right? Their friends could be recommending products. They could be reading reviews. So this is really complicated stuff. And then, to top it off, brands aren't really using information to target in a relevant way. So it's frustrating for the customer. It's frustrating for the brand itself because there's just a disconnect. So it's a constant struggle between two things. One, there's too many questions but the wrong data to answer them. When we think about what we want to learn about our customers, it's not only learning about, okay, which channels are working, which channels do they prefer, are they engaged with mobile, but it's also a lot of questions that keep on popping up is, how do I get them more engaged? We talked about, are they passionate? What's relevant to them? And then on the flip side of that, we have too much data and unable to answer the right questions. I see it all the time. Part of my job is taking inquiries from brands and agencies and vendors on a daily basis that really want to learn about what marketers want to know about their customers. And there's just so much information out there that it's overwhelming. This is where measurement and analytics kind of come in. There's just been this huge spotlight on different methodologies to help understand channel performance, to understand marketing media performance, to understand how to be more efficient in terms of buys, and then to understand that complex customer purchase path. We hear terms like attribution, marketing mix modeling, churn analysis, next best offer analysis. These are all ways to harness that big data and to make relevant interactions because your customer's expecting it. The customers aren't dumb. They know that you have so much information about them. So they expect you to use it in a responsible way. So what are we seeing in terms of trends with measurement and analytics? This is a hot topic for our area. We have 3 analysts that really cover measurement and analytics at Forrester. And we're seeing some pretty interesting questions coming in through the public. And it all starts with big data. The past few years, big data has really been, from our observation, a technology play, meaning that you have these different platforms to manage data, and you have these different tools to parse through big data at a quick rate. Which is all well and good, but now I would say in the past year, marketers really want to understand, well, how can we use this information to better communicate with our customers? Right? How can we leverage some techniques that we've used in the past and integrate more meaningful data to craft personalized messages, to optimize websites? So this has become more a reality for marketers recently. And there are several applications for big data. We view them from customer-facing to back-end data and analysis. And when we think about customer-facing applications of leveraging data, it's really about using it for things like interaction management, retargeting, predictive call routing. It is the methodologies that directly impact the customer. So the customer, who probably doesn't know it, they're having a really seamless customer experience. And on the back end, this is where kind of the data geeks in the room really just, we have a field day going through data, right? We use things like attribution, marketing mix modeling, web analytics to confirm assumptions and identify trends. So all of these types of approaches leverage data in different ways. So when we asked in a recent survey, rank the top 3 drivers that encourage an organization to make use of measurement analytics. This is a recent survey that is currently in market, but I wanted to share some initial results. 44% use analytics to improve acquisition and targeting. So think of things like targeting models, predictive profitability models. That's what they're using analytics for. 22% use analytics to improve customer retention. Customer retention analytics is probably the most underutilized analytics today, partly because it's been a lot about volume and acquisition of net news, rather retaining and growing customers. And I also blame the just proliferation of data with just maybe a hesitation to use different analytic techniques. I mean, if you think about it, we have tons of data and tons of information to use for personalization. And yet there is not a strong adoption of it at this point. And then finally, 7% use analytics to improve marketing accountability. So what we're seeing is they're more customer-focused usage of analytics. And then, yes, we see a usage of analytics to improve how you value marketing, which goes hand in hand with consumer. And again, this is an in-market survey, so these results may be updated as we speak. So focusing on predictive analytics, it's not really new, right? I mean, back when I was at GE Money, I was responsible for building predictive models. So I would build targeting models, response models, and we use that in a way that to identify new customers, to identify customers that would do cross and upsell, that were good cross and upsell candidates. What's really interesting to me here is real-time optimization. More and more brands want to use real-time analytics to make decisions almost instantaneously. You know, approaches like attribution can help do that. Right? If you understand at this given moment in time what the impact could be, and you can make those changes instantaneously. A great example of this is using attribution and real-time bidding, right? Hooking it into buying systems. Marketers feel that they're starting to understand the importance of those moments, those important interactions, and they need the technologies to facilitate that, right? And when we start to look a little bit more about expectations from analytic technologies, the expectations are really high. We did a study for technology professionals, 2012 and 2013, 2014 is not out yet. When we asked them, hey, what technologies do you expect to have the biggest impact? Of course, they said mobile, but this is an interesting trend. So look at the shift of big data platforms, CI platforms, and then BI platforms. The importance level has gone up. Why? Because, well, first, the big data platforms, it's important to have the right technology to manage all this information. But the BI and CI interest has gone up too because of what I said earlier. It's not only about having the technology to manage this data, but having the right tools to access this information. So customer intelligence and analytics platforms, right? When we think of maybe web analytics, attribution, any one of those analytics engines that help you make better decisions on where you should optimize on, that interest has gone up. I see it every day when I take inquiries about the different options out there in terms of reporting, analysis, attribution. So this is of no surprise. Business intelligence, so having the right reporting, visualization, and analytics to support not only marketing insight, but business insights, right? It's just not only about marketing and consumer interaction, it's how that drives business value. And there are a lot of BI tools out there that enables insights. So we're seeing a strong expectation from these technologies and different approaches to measure that. And speaking of kind of measuring success, let's talk about what attribution can do. Right? It measures the impact of all of marketing, right, and media. And not only marketing and media, but I mean, I have been a real kind of supporter of attribution being the platform right now that can measure moments, that can identify relevant interactions. So think about it beyond marketing and media efficiencies and effectiveness. Think about it beyond, well, identifying which search term is driving most value or the performance of certain publisher sites. Think about it as a way to understand that purchase path and understand the level of engagement for each interaction. So this is how we define attribution. I'm not going to read it. I can recite it in my sleep. But you know, I view attribution, and Paul pointed this out. It's not exclusively digital. It started out as a digital measurement approach and exercise. We view it at Forrester. It is crediting all marketing communications, all interactions. You know, and I have to rewrite this definition in a few months because it's pretty old, but it is really about not even marketing communications. It's about all interactions that led to that desired customer action, which is usually conversion. Although we've been receiving lots of questions around, well, what about things like, can it measure how engaged customers are? So we're starting to get really complex questions around those engagement metrics. But it definitely should measure against that single customer action. So what are we seeing in terms of adoption with attribution and different techniques? 16% of brands leverage advanced attribution techniques. I think this is I think this may be pretty high. It's still low, but I was expecting it from our survey to be a little lower. So it's good that it's 16%, but it's not as high as it should be, and why not? 2 reasons. Data. We ask in our survey all the time about the barriers of using insights and analytics. The #1 response is data quality and data management. And then the second reason why adoption is slow is organization. And this is coming up more and more. There's huge barriers of sharing data across different channels, across different functional groups. It is a significant shift of moving away from last click, last touch, to a more algorithmic-based approach to evaluating your interactions. You're not only talking about moving budgets, but people will be goaled differently, right? If you have an email campaign manager and they're goaled on open rates and click-through rates, they should probably start to be goaled on engagement or percentage to contribution to conversion. So that is a challenge. And Paul presented his stat around last touch. I think he said around 63. We got around 53% of people still use last touch because it's easy. You know, I worked at an agency before I went to Forrester, and one of the clients that I was managing campaigns for, they were just churn out campaigns after campaigns on a quarterly basis where you just get in the mode of managing, executing, analyzing campaigns and presenting results. And it's really hard to take a step back and kind of look at how you're measuring. And that's kind of part of the reason is that last touch measurement is convenient. It's a lot of work to move to a more advanced approach. So what are we seeing in terms of brands that are really successful at leveraging analytics to understand performance and drive relevancy and value? We see a more integrated measurement and analytics approach. So companies are using cross-channel attribution, which is kind of a bottom-up approach, where they're using those discrete points of interactions to measure and value all of those tactics, those campaigns, those moments. And they're using something like marketing mix optimization, a top-down approach, to measure impact of mass, right? And marketing mix optimization really can also measure the impact of digital, email, social, and so on, at a very high level. So think about marketing mix optimization as a CMO tool to help them identify where they can, the value of each of those channels, where they should invest in the future. And if they were to pull some levers, what would the impact be on their key performance metrics like revenue and profitability? And it also takes into account economic factors, demographics, pricing, right? So it's really a state of the health of the business that impacts marketing mix. And cross-channel attribution helps you measure and understand at a very tactical level how those interactions are working, and helps marketers understand which interactions should they exploit and should use to drive more engagement, drive more value. Now, we see companies use these two different approaches together in a few ways. One is to what Paul said, to fill in the gap from a cross-channel attribution perspective. If they can't integrate mass media, they use marketing mix optimization to understand the gap. We see it also used as cross-channel attribution recalibrates those metrics and those values that are fed into marketing mix optimization engines. So those optimizations and forecasts on the top down are more fine-tuned, they're more laser focused, right? Because the metrics are not based on last click, right? The performance metrics. Not a lot of organizations are doing this. I came across two. And what made them really unique in terms of integrating those two different types of approaches is that they have a data-centric organization. One of the firms that I talk to frequently about this, they have a chief data science, a data and analytics office. So their whole culture is based on data and information, and they understand and invest in analytics. So in the same survey, when we asked, what do they do with these insights, right, from measurement and analytics, 69% said they use it for customer relationship management. I think about, I'm not a Rue La La customer. My sister actually works for a competitor of theirs. But I am a huge Banana Republic fan because I just think they have really great clothes for working women. I have been a member for a long time. I have a credit card. I earn points. Yeah, they send me coupons and all that stuff, which is great because I always love things at a discount. But what I really like is the store in Mount Kisco. I walk in, I know the girl. She has stuff laid out for me because she knows what I'm looking for. She knows my size, right? So they do a really good job at managing my relationship with the brand, and I come back, So I'm not going to a lot of the discount stores like TJ Maxx. I'd rather pay a little bit more just because they manage my relationship with them really well. 67% use insights for channel and campaign planning. Right? When you think about my last example, well, obviously they know that I like that personalized service, so an email from the girl at Banana Republic every quarter is helpful, right? So they know the best channel to interact with me. And then finally, 62% of the insights is used for customer experience management. Now, when we think about experience, it can be applied to my Banana Republic example, but another great example is Starbucks, for me at least. Right? They have that app. I go in to the Starbucks store on 21st and 5th, right by my office. I walk in, the guys know me there because I visit it a few times a day. They know my drink. They know when I was pregnant that I needed decaf, non-fat. They know now that I'm all about calf, extra, shots in there. But I know them, and I fostered a really good relationship with them. And I have a really good experience going in there, and I don't mind spending $5 a pop for my drink a few times a day. Even though there are a ton of great coffee shops around. One that just opened up on 5th. Over in Italy, they have their little coffee stand as well, but I still go back to Starbucks. So given all the trends I provided, how can you kind of go back to your office on Monday and really empower yourself and empower analytics? I always like to close out in these with giving advice, right? 3 things that you can take away. And Paul pointed out a few, so they may be repetitive. Manage and connect your data, because it's so easy to do. I'm kidding. This is extremely difficult to do, but it's imperative to have. If you can't connect your data across different touch points, across different devices, just come up with a methodology of trying to understand different purchase paths and different ways people connect with your brand. Going back to my example, when I worked at GE Money, I was a part of the advanced analytics team. We had a separate data and infrastructure team. It wasn't an IT team. It sat within marketing. Their sole responsibility was to be the data advocate and understand which technologies drive data and information. They were responsible for paid data sources, owned and then earned, right? So they managed all that information. If we wanted to bring in new data sources, we would reach out to them, we'd talk about it. If we wanted to include a lot of different data, we would talk to them about getting it at the right level. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and you build a team. It's expensive, obviously. But what I am suggesting is you go back on Monday and you sit down in your office and you think about who should be the person responsible to understand where your data is. Have that metadata dictionary. How many in here know what a metadata dictionary is? How many of here have it? Create one. Identify where all your data is. Choose a mix of the right analytic techniques that drive a balanced customer growth. This means that understand what your business objectives are, whether it would be retention, acquisition, loyalty, growth, advocacy, and then have the right techniques to drive to that business objective. For financial services firms, it may be really focusing on cross and upsell different products across your core customer base. So you may want to look at next best offer, next best action models. For retailers, startup retailers, they may want to acquire new customers. So it's really looking towards attribution to understand audience pathing, where they're interacting at different points in time. So choose that mix. Make sure it kind of makes sense. I think a good example of this, back from when I was at GE, we used to do these propensity models of people who would respond to specific email campaigns and do a cross-section of high value customers and use that to identify the right target audience, to using different types of analytics to drive growth. And 3, don't deploy attribution, marketing mix modeling, churn analytics as projects. They're not projects. They are really the core to building a marketing and consumer strategy. I receive calls all the time from VPs of digital, directors of digital, saying, we want to build an attribution model. We want to connect with a really good attribution provider to help us understand maybe our digital channels. Well, that's great. You're a retailer, omni-channel. You have web, in-store, tablets. You're advertising on a national level. Have you talked to your colleagues in the branding department in advertising? And kind of a light switch turns on, and they're like, oh no, I haven't. The main reason why is, in my example, is that if you elevate this to a strategy to understand consumers, you're starting to get the attention of the CMO, CEO, and then it becomes a mandate within your organization. So let me leave you with this thought. I originally was going to say, data is really complex and all that stuff, and we all know that. But just measurement, I was thinking about this last night. I was talking to a few of you last night. Measurement and metrics are complex, right? I have spent a long time in my career trying to quantify what the impact, trying to map out every single interaction to a business value. I think attribution can help get you there, but there are certain things that are really difficult to map back to business value, engagement being one of them, relevancy being one of them. And that's okay. But I think you need to take a phased approach, and you need to understand that, hey, first maybe I need to understand the addressable interaction channels that I can measure, and I need to layer on, well, how engaged are they through those channels, and how relevant is my content? Right? You can't answer it in all one fell swoop, but you need to understand which analytic techniques can help get you there. Thank you. Questions?
Just hang out.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Michael Habler with Initiative. I lead the analytics practice there. Thank you, Tina, for a great presentation. You mentioned one thing about utilizing the marketing mix, algorithms and cross-channel attribution, and you mentioned you're using cross-channel attribution to fine-tune marketing mix algorithms.
Yep.
And I find it really intriguing, and I hope you can elaborate a bit. I've been trying to do it the other way around the entire time, so I'm really curious how you...
So, think about attribution as a readjustment to your measurement approach. So you're measuring email based on last click. Well, you employ an attribution model. You're going to understand the real value of that email in context with search, display, social, PPC, things like that. So how you're assessing the value of that certain email campaign, those metrics will help fine-tune a marketing mix model, because the marketing mix model takes how you value email and then optimizes on that. So if you've been valuing email on last click, and now you're valuing it on a more algorithmic-based approach, it's adjusted and it's more focused and more accurate, because that advanced attribution approach takes into account all those different interactions. That makes sense. Any other questions? Hi.
My name is Roger. I work for Hyatt Hotels.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned something in the beginning that you said that customers are expecting us to use the data and act on it in a relevant way, in a respectful way. I usually I get a lot of pushback from senior management every time I try to present things that we want to do using data, like surprise and delight and do guest experience management. Could you please elaborate more if you have any data that backs it up and says, yes, it is true, customers are expecting that?
we have data to support it. I'm thinking particularly a colleague of mine, Fatima Katabalou, talks a lot about privacy and data management and adaptive intelligence and using data collaboratively across different businesses. I don't have any statistics on me at this point, but I can definitely follow up with you to help your plight with understanding how you can use data to manage relationships better. Yeah. Great. Any more questions?
Hi, Tina.
Hi.
Jonathan Art from GSD&M. I think we talked at breakfast.
We have.
I thought the third point that you made in your closing was really interesting about treating the analytical initiatives not as projects, but integrated strategic pieces. And what I've found a lot of my work in the agency world and even before when I was in consulting was that we would do an analysis project, we'd do one thing one time, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, we use big data, right? And they would take this singular instance, the clients would, and try trump it as we're an organization that leverages big data and we used advanced analytics and we put out a PR release, but it wasn't really the reality. And so I'm wondering, as you go through your Forrester research and you're asking people questions about what they do and what they use, and they're stating these numbers that we're advanced organizations or we incorporate these things, like how much of that is the reality and how much of that do you feel is them trying to latch on to something to say, yeah, we've ticked this box?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. So how much of a reality are brands really advanced? I think probably maybe 20% of the brands I talk to are pretty advanced. Right? I think financial services firms, they do a really great job with advanced analytics, real-time optimization, things like that, because they have the data and support from the organization to do so. Their problem is they're still stuck in silos, right? In general, I think organizations are struggling just to figure out the right techniques, the right approaches to value marketing and media, and more importantly, to understand kind of those customer interactions and engagement. So they may use basic kind of web analytics and BI tools to understand performance at a functional level, but the adoption of really kind of complex things like attribution, like next best offer, next best action, are pretty few and far between, and it's usually the firms that can invest in the data resources, the analytic resources, and really the technology to help enable all of those insights.
Thank you so much,
Great.
Tina
Thank
Moffett,
you.
ladies and gentlemen.